We light this chalice with the fire of commitment, the faith of community, and the love that holds us as we hold our history.
Welcome to this place. Welcome to this moment, to this time of worship where we do the work that we can only do together. Welcome to the telling of a story of heartbreak and lamentation and power and purpose, a story that we are but the forming edge of. It is a gift to be together in worship. Wherever you find yourself, far away or here in this room, welcome to River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And if you find yourself new or feeling new, reach out at any time to connections@rruuc.org, or just pop in at our welcome table right out there so that we can greet you and help you find ways to weave into the tapestry that is this community. This morning in particular, we are so honored and delighted to welcome Dr. Marcia Coleman Adebayo. Marcia is indeed a fiery leader of great purpose who helps to guide the social justice missions and ministries of Macedonia Baptist Church, our partners in faith right up the road, and the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition in a struggle for recognition of the fullness of the people's story. Our worship theme this month, Holding History, invites us to hold our personal histories, our collective histories, the history of this place which we honor on an altar right here in the lounge that you can pay attention to and attend to and light a candle at any time today, and indeed to hold the history of this region, all that was won and lost and stolen here. Welcome to this history of which we are on the forming edge. Come, let us worship together.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Each week here at River Road, we lift up the prophetic voices among us. As Unitarian Universalists, we gain knowledge, truth, and wisdom from voices throughout the ages, around the globe, throughout time. And this morning, we're so honored to receive the gift of history, the gift of direct experience from Brother Harvey Matthews. Brother Harvey Matthews is a leader in this community, is knowledgeable, having grown up here, lived here, and loved here for many, many years. This history that we hold together is indeed a gift. The wisdom that comes through the lived experience of those who helped build this community is indeed a treasure. So for our prophetic voices this morning, we welcome Brother Harvey Matthews through video to share his prophetic wisdom.
First, I'd like to start off by saying, ones you have never been here before, welcome to River Road. We had our own black school right there where that tower is. That was the black school, not only for River Road, but maybe 30 miles north of River Road. It was the schoolhouse. And we had 3 teachers in the schoolhouse, and we had 3 rooms in the schoolhouse. But the whole community was like a little rural farm area. My granddad and my dad, we had our farm down where you see now the Whole Food is located at. Referred to it now is more so the lost black colony of Lily White Bethesda. And that's the way I look at it. I live that, and I will leave here believing in that till my last dying breath. My uncles and my aunts, my grandparents, people that lived here, they worked hard. It was a proud little area here where we lived. But to just see it just more so stripping and snatched away from you family by family. I had some long restless nights. I had some sob stories when I go back and reflect how it once was and how they end up before we moved away. And I'm going to share all things with you. Yes, I don't just have heard about the Ku Klux Klan. I lived a life of punishment and abuse from Ku Klux Klans right here on River Road. They used to come out of the house at night on horse, old farm pickup trucks, raise a lot of hell in the yard, throw mocktails and throw balls and things within the home. And then at one time they came and took my dad away and took him up River Road. You know, did what they want to do to my dad. And then they brought him back home to us. But that I live to see, and that I strive for, to not never have to witness that again. Now, when it comes down to the Moses Cemetery, yes, I have knowledge of Moses Cemetery. Being over on the hill opposite that high-rise building that you see there, that's where the cemetery is. When we was kids playing, running around River Road, the Moses Cemetery was one of our favorite spots to play. Because we used to go in there, I'm quite sure some of you all know the game of hide and go see. And in the cemetery was a nice place to hide because you had them stones you can get down behind, crouch down behind, hide behind, and all that whatnot. And we played in there. Because all over around River Road when I was a kid was just red clay. If I go over and take a shovel and dig in that ground right there, I'm going to dig down to red clay. It's been there when I was born, been there while I lived here, and it's still there today. But I'll tell you and tell the world, if they go over and do what they're supposed to do over underneath that parking lot and go down there and survey and dig like they're supposed to, you're going to find the remains of bodies that's been going on and on and on. But there's still some sewing of there. And we noticed it when they was hauling stuff away and the coalition got over there and marching and whatnot. They actually physically blocked trucks from going in there, hauling away the bodies things that they had dug up and hauled away, 30, 40 trucks. They try to remove that to keep us from, we came in there to explore, some people in there to dig and see the remains are there, and they hauled it away. But thank God to Marshall them and some of the coalition members, they fought that, and we have almost something like 3,000 pictures that we stood there at the McDonald's and took, and you can see the grave markings and things that they were still trying to salvage and haul away. to keep from being evidence if we really got justice for someone to go down there and evaluate that ground and give us the justice that we deserve for our ancestors. And on behalf of the Macedonia Baptist Church, I want to thank you all for coming out and continue to come out to help us in this struggle, to help us with this fight, because with you all, we are really somebody.
We who believe in justice.
There is a pattern that power uses. There is a pattern that power uses again and again. Not just in this place, but every place where massive transfers of wealth are in the making. There is a pattern that power uses to tell the people that their history did not happen. Here on River Road, we gather alongside and behind prophets and storytellers like Brother Harvey Matthews, leaders and organizers like Dr. Coleman Adebayo. We gather alongside and behind so many others to declare that the real history of this place is worth holding on to. That such a history, such a legacy cannot be stolen away along with the land, that the story will be told as long as there are prophets and people willing to tell it. And I have seen it, the pattern, the erasure or the attempt at it. Brother Harvey, he said in that video, which he recorded at a rally sponsored by the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition and the Poor People's Campaign, Brother Harvey, he said he knows the red clay beneath our feet in this place. He knows the topography of this land and the rise and fall of its history, and he knows it not because he read about it or theorized about it, but because he lives it. He lived it. I walked with Brother Harvey once across the landscape of his childhood and that of so many others. I walked with him behind the McDonald's up on River Road and past the storage units and up the steep incline behind the fancy plant store where you and I and so many of us go to buy our annuals every spring. The gravestones dotted the hillside, he said. A creek trickled by when it was free to flow once, not hemmed in by a concrete half-pipe managed so thoroughly we forget it was ever there. No. It flowed. We lived here, learned here, played here, fought here, died here, Brother Harvey said, in this place which was once a thriving African-American community called Graysville, our place, our town, a proud little place. Brother Harvey was there at the Little League games of the River Road Lions, when black boys ran free among the bases built for them. He was there in the hallways of Somerset Elementary School in the early years of integration. He was there to hear the stories of the bells that rang at the construction site just up the street, bells that rang to still the bulldozers just long enough to scoop up the bones from the graveyard of his ancestors. He was there. He lived it. It is not conjecture. It is not story. It is not the product of abstract research. He was there, and still, just a few years ago, when the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition first came together to tell their story, to tell his story, the story of his ancestors and his people and his life before our county council and planning commission, we heard men in very nice suits say things like the alleged cemetery on River Road, the supposed history that may or may not be, the story that may only be a fable, and yet there Brother Harvey Matthews sat. The one who lived it lives it still. The one who holds the history and will not let it go. Here we are asked to hold that history alongside and behind him at his back and not to let it go. It has been said that right now we are in the midst of one of the most massive wealth transfers in American history. as generations turn on the wheel of time. But this place has been witness to a massive scale wealth transfer before, right at the very moment when the suburbs were being born, when patches of earth became gold in the pocket. Developers here along River Road were savvy enough to see exactly what was coming. They knew what we all now know, that generational wealth is not transferred through goods and objects. It is transferred through homes and land and an ownership stake in the changing landscape, and so there was redlining. Whites only on this side of Chevy Chase Circle, unspoken covenants of exclusion, complicity at the highest levels of government, and for the black people who were already here, already thriving, working, playing baseball, learning, growing in Graysville, the ones who held a stake in the land long before wealth marched out from the city to meet it, for them there was wholesale theft. As Reverend William Barber has put it, in addition to invoking the 40 acres black people never got, the reparations movement today should be talking about the approximately 11 million acres black people had but lost, in many cases through fraud, deception, and outright theft. 11 million acres in this country, including hundreds of acres right here, stolen away for pennies on the dollar, often under threat of violence, in the simple and yet often legally reinforced swipe of a pen. This large-scale land theft at the dawn of the suburban age is similar to the urban gentrification and displacement that we all know about, but different and sometimes more violent. It was and is driven less by market forces than by the clearly delineated strategies of a few enormous development companies who knew just what they came here to do. And so everything you see, just down the road from this place, everything you see, from the Kenwood Country Club to the Whole Foods, from the gas station you shop at to the 7-Eleven I went to yesterday, every bit of it has a history. In the days before this generation, an old man sat on a porch looking out on the flowers he carefully planted in his front yard, which today is a grassy berm in front of the Whole Foods parking lot. Children whose brown faces shined in the sun beat a path up the hill to their school each day, crowning the heights of Graysville, where a giant cell tower now stands, a beacon of all of our messages to the world. And little Harvey Matthews, he played baseball as the men who built the great edifices of the capital city caught the train into town right here on River Road. We do not allege the existence of this history. We do not imagine it. It is not conjecture. It is not theory. We hold this history and fight for it, to remember, to celebrate, and to recommit. Today, we hold this history. Today, we tell and retell the stories. And today, we are blessed with the music of the movement. Beginning now with the movement art shared by three powerful leaders, three empowering leaders of the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. Our music we're about to hear is Ella's song. These very leaders show up every day to tell the story. We are blessed by the voices and the commitment of Eric Sheptock, Dr. Karen Wilson Ama-Echefu, and Lucy Murphy.
We who believe in justice cannot rest.
Cannot rest.
We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in justice cannot rest. Cannot rest. Oh no. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in justice cannot rest.
Justice
cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
Me young people come first.
They come first.
They have the courage where we failed. If I can shed some light as they follow us through the gale, we who believe in justice cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
And that which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me.
We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest.
We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm.
We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand and fight is the only way our struggle survives.
We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny.
We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
I'm a woman who speaks in her voice, and I must be heard. Sometimes I am quite difficult. I bow to no man's word.
We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in justice cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in justice cannot rest until it comes.
We come here to this place carrying the joys of the journey, carrying also the sorrows almost too heavy to bear. We come to this place every week with the joys and the sorrows of our professional and our personal lives just pulsing underneath the surface of all of our words. There's so much we hold individually and in our families. We celebrate the great news that some among us are doing well. Ray Peck is in rehabilitation after a time in the hospital. His wife, Deb, is so happy that her River Road family wrapped them all up when they needed it most. We gather with gratitude for, shall we say, the gifts and the graces that we share with the world, including the fact that Dr. Cliff Hardin's Requiem, a movement from it, was performed by the Choral Arts Society of Washington, D.C. just yesterday. The man doesn't like to brag, so we brag on him. We carry, each of us, our family members struggling to overcome, our family members and friends struggling to heal, from barriers great and small. We honor the memory today of Bobby Sachs and Dorothy Staples Egbert, who were both memorialized here in this room just yesterday. And we grapple. We grapple once again with the publicly performed tears of men who have done horrible things. May we remember that the lives taken, lives of black men, of people of color, victims of systemic violence, are more important than the comfort of those who took those lives. Even as we hold the very deep complexity of these times, may we challenge ourselves not to look away from the loss.
I now invite you into a moment of groundedness and of presence, perhaps lowering your gaze or closing your eyes. By settling into this presence of community, by settling into this place where love, where community exists and thrives, we call forth the spirit of life and the spirit of love, the spirit of people, of movement, of living. As we hold this history, we grapple with the challenges and the conflicts. We grapple with what it means for each of us in this moment and in this time, and we call forth that spirit of life and that spirit of love to guide us, to protect us, to blanket us, to agitate us. And with open, willing hearts, we ask how we hold this history. And we hear that still small voice that says, let it live. We let this history live through us. We honor it. We protect it. We lift up those struggling in this moment, in this time, with isolation, with loss of home, loss of income, loss of stability, for we know there are so many in this community and in this world in such a turbulent time. Our hearts are lifted for those who are struggling with illness and disease, with loss of ability. We turn our face toward community in these times. We extend our hands to one another. In times we were asked to sit with discomfort. At times we were asked to move against the tide. But we do that with one another. We call in that cloud of witnesses. We call in our ancestors. We call in one another as we weave this tapestry. May we do it with love. May we do it with open minds and hearts. And may we do it knowing that we create this community together, each one of us. May we hold that truth. May we hold one another. May it be so. Ashe and blessed be.
We have so many good gifts to share. Our graciousness, our friendship, our talent, our community, our resources, our courage. Yes, indeed, our money that shapes the mission, the commitments, and the ministries of this place. And so, as our offering plays, I invite you to give as you are willing and able in all the ways. You can text to give. Now is the time when having phones in church is suddenly okay. I'm adjusting to it. 73256 is the text to give number. You can give right off our website. You can even go old school and bring us a check. Everything you do contributes to the tapestry we weave, because there is no we without each and every one of you. Let us give until it feels good, never until it hurts. And may everything we give be leveraged for great power and transformation.
Good morning. Good morning. To Reverend Nancy Ladd, to Reverend Melinda Witherspoon, I am absolutely thrilled to be here. There is healing in this place. I'd like to thank the River Road community for sending David Ward to work with BACC as an ally. He has become an intricate part of our struggle. And to all of you, my beloved community, good morning. 5 years ago, I became the First Lady of Macedonia Baptist Church and Director of the Social Justice Ministry. My first official responsibility was to attend a meeting at the Montgomery County Parks and Planning Commission. I'm a political scientist. My specialization is in Africa and international development. So I had no interest in local politics. Therefore, I greeted my first assignment as First Lady with total disinterest. In fact, I didn't even know what a planning board did. And in reality, if I'm honest, I didn't care. The planning board had invited the community to a meeting in order to check off a requirement that they inform the community about a new sector plan that involved land that we now call Moses Macedonia African Cemetery. Planning Director Wright started the meeting by informing our community that there was a rumor that an alleged black cemetery was located on this land, but there was no truth to this myth. We didn't have to worry our little heads. They would take care of all of that. So the planning board sought our permission to simply sign off on the sector plan so that they could move on with business with the development of affordable housing. A trustee of our church, who I really didn't know that well at the time, raised his hand and said, "Ms. Wright, you said that cemetery was a myth, that it's an alleged cemetery. Oh no, I used to play in that cemetery as a child. We would play hide and go seek among the tombstones. It was the only place that black children could play." I watched the policymakers' faces turn gray as they quickly looked at each other out of the sides of their eyes. I knew that look because I had spent 18 years in the federal government as a senior policy analyst. And we all knew that what we had just heard was oral history. And those of us with policy backgrounds knew that we had just heard the truth. Well, my initial disinterest quickly dissolved. My next question was, where are the bodies of members of my church? And were they removed without permission of the families? No idea where the bodies were, was the reply. For members of my church, the sector plan was the least of our concern. The real issue was whether the area we now call Moses was the scene of a crime. Who committed such heinous acts, and who was involved in the cover-up? We were treated that day like our ancestors were treated 70 years ago, as mere nuisance and inconvenience, invisibles. We were supposed to know that our place in the meeting was merely honorary, that we were not supposed to ask the difficult questions and demand rational answers. We were supposed to embrace our invisibility, our status as non-humans, and thereby participate in our own oppression. The unspoken question for these policymakers was why? Why were we asking about the trash that the county and developers had dumped 70 years ago or 140 years ago? They weren't really human. They were things that served white people, made money for white people, and when they died, they became trash. So why were we making such a big fuss over white people's trash? And that's when the fight began to save Moses' Macedonia African Cemetery in order to create a memorial and museum to the River Road African community that was kidnapped from West and Central Africa and grew there after the Civil War and through Reconstruction and lasted until the mid-20th century when it was destroyed. It was wiped out by white supremacist terrorism, by a deadly collusion between Montgomery County, the KKK, and white businesses. This is the part of the cemetery that we call Old Moses, the area closest to River Road, right down the street from you. It contains the bodies of those massacred during slavery. After emancipation, blacks came together and bought land in 1911 adjacent to where their family members in the West Bart area were buried. We call this part of the cemetery New Moses. It's right across the street from Giant Food Store. Now, in the 1960s, during construction of the foundation for the West Bart apartment tower, right across again from Giant Food Store, across down the street from here, in New Moses, hundreds of remains were uncovered. Instead of the county requiring the decent burial of our ancestors, the county allowed the developers to dig up the bodies, literally tear them apart, and bulldoze the remains into a ditch. And in order to lock in the remains, particularly during rainy season, and to erase all traces of the crime, a parking lot was built on top of our church members' remains. This past year, last August, construction began on the storage facility on the adjacent lot that is Old Moses, again, right down the street from here. Tombstones, funerary objects, bones. We literally saw archaeologists and anthropologists walking around with bones in their hands. And sometimes when we would yell and scream and cry, they would take a bone and they would put it under their boot and they'd crush it in front of our faces. So we were invisible to the African kidnappers of the mid-1700s on River Road, the councilmans, the Loughboroughs, the Posies, the shoemakers. They all had plantations. In fact, you're sitting at the site of an African, of a plantation. They turned to breeding sexual violence against little African girls when the land went bad from the tobacco crops that they were planting here, right here. I'm going to ask you to please close your eyes. This is a safe space. Can you hear them? Can you feel them? Our ancestors have been reaching out to you for a very long time. And they have been here the entire time. Thank you. Where is the accountability? Where is the acknowledgement of the sanctity of their lives? The Housing Opportunities Commission, HOC, announced in August that it was selling the West Bard Tower and the new Moses African Cemetery across from Giant under the parking lot to a private land developer for $51 million because it could no longer handle our community protest. BACC filed for a temporary restraining order to stop the sale. Now, it is unheard of for a small little Black Baptist church and community members to prevail against a large quasi-government, the largest developer in Montgomery County. But on September 1st, the court granted the temporary restraining order. And then later, on October 26th, a couple of weeks ago, when everyone told us it was impossible, the court granted a preliminary injunction against the sale of our ancestors on the HOC property. You've got to give us applause for that. David, again, wins the battle against Goliath. He won again. David wins again. So we are in the process of suing the HOC because it refused to obey the law that requires it to file a petition with the Montgomery Circuit Court before selling a cemetery in order to allow descendants a voice in this matter. For the first time in Maryland, under the law, African ancestors who had no voice while they were alive were heard in an American courtroom through the testimony of their ancestors, and they won. They won. Judge Carla Smith halted the sale of Moses Macedonia Cemetery in Bethesda, pending a full hearing on this matter. She wrote, "The court cannot ignore that as early as the 1930s, when construction began in the River Road community, the deceased have been forgotten, forsaken, and their final resting places destroyed, or at a minimum, desecrated." This is Thurgood Marshall-like language, powerful language coming from the bench. Reverend Barber, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, praised Judge Smith's decision, as did civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. The victory that is won is important and historic, but not just for those of us in Bethesda or in Maryland, but for all of us throughout the United States whose ancestors have been buried in cemeteries that have been desecrated. Unfortunately, the fight for justice on River Road must continue. The issue is not settled, and we can still lose this battle. So we need your help. We need your help. I am begging you to help us. We want the land returned to Macedonia Baptist Church, the sole remaining institution from the River Road community that survived the terror on River Road, to create a memorial and museum to educate county residents about our county's real history. We're currently asking County Executive Mark Elrich, who has been very hostile to us, to convene negotiations on the parties, HOC, Parks and Planning, Charger Ventures, particularly the CEO, Jesse Henry, to resolve all historical grievances and obtain a settlement. For this church, Black Lives Matter cannot be theoretical. It cannot be a theoretical concept. You are literally sitting in the space of a Black Holocaust. This is as real for you as it is for us at Macedonia Baptist Church. There is blood under the soil of this church. I now ask you again, in this hallowed and sacred space, can you hear them? Can you feel them? They've been here the entire time, and they are asking you to help them. We will not be silent. Will you? Ashe. Amen.
You better listen, my brother, 'cause if you do, you can hear their voices still calling from across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, they're crying across the land, and they will until we all come to understand. None of us are free, none of us are free, none of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. There are people in darkness, they just can't see the light. If we don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right. We got to feel for each other, let our brothers know we're here. Got to get the message, send it out all loud and clear. None of us are free, none of us are free, none of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. It's a single truth we all need to see. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Well, I swear to you, salvation isn't very hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We got to join together, spirit, heart, and mind, so all the souls who are suffering know they're not alone. None of us are free. None of us are free. If you just look around you, you're gonna see what I say, that the world's getting smaller each passing day. It's time to make some changes. It's time we all realize that the truth is shining right before our eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. It's the very heart of humanity. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us, 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 none of us are free. None of us, none of us,
Did you see that little church in the shadow of that great big building? Could you feel the power of the people emanating from that place? You know, right now, you can go to the McDonald's parking lot, and you can have the restaurant right behind you, and you can look over the railing right into the very heart of the desecration. Our lives are interwoven in this story, and so must be our commitments. You saw in the beginning of that video some actions we might begin to take to be allies, partners, descendants, and faithful carriers of a legacy. If you would like to be part of planning a next action for how River Road can support the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition, you can contact Reverend Amanda. We're going to make it happen. What a gift it is to be each other's people in the complicated times and the easy ones as well. Everything we do as a congregation is an expression of who we want to be in relationship and in community, and you can find out so much more about our ministries and our mission here at River Road in our e-weekly newsletter and on our website. A few things I want to highlight for you today are longtime partners, La Clínica del Pueblo. They're planning another posada party for the children and the families connected with that community. You can donate online at the La Clínica website to give a gift or to offer monetary support to the La Clínica Posada between now and November 19th. We are also delighted that our Educating for Change Racial Justice Pathway is holding a field trip on Saturday, December 11th from 2 to 4 to the Josiah Henson Memorial Park and Museum. We'll meet here at River Road at 1:15 and carpool to that place where Josiah Henson lived and led as an enslaved man here in Montgomery County. We are also working hard to keep our community safe and connected in this COVID season. We'll have updates about our emerging COVID-19 protocols leading up to and through the holidays that will come out this week. Of course, we are deeply grateful for the people who make this place work, for all of the folks who made the River Road online auction happen last night, including our auctioneers, Anna Lim, Lisa Orange, Rita Parks, Patrina Hollingsworth, our planners. You make it work so that we can work together, and we're so grateful. Today, as we leave, I want to invite you to please make a pass through the lounge where you can attend to our altar that we have set up with mementos and artifacts of this very land upon which we stand, land which did indeed enrich the machinery of slavery, land sacred to the Nacotchtank and Piscataway people. You can buy yard signs to save and support the Bethesda Moses Cemetery. You can also buy a book just released about the full history of this place that's available. And if we buy them all, Marcia says they will bring us some more. We are so grateful to live and to learn and to worship together, and we know it doesn't happen by happenstance. It happens because of love and devotion. Danny and Scott in the sound booth, Schwai, Cliff, all of our musicians, including Issei Barnwell, the DC Labor Chorus, and the amazing movement artists from the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition itself who blessed us today, and most of all, Brother Harvey Matthews and Dr. Marsha Coleman Adebayo. Thank you for your witness and your wisdom.
May we reach out our hands as a gesture of the energy of community, of that fire of commitment, for the space that we hold together as we seek to change what it means to be responsible, what it means to hold this history. As we move into our days and weeks ahead, may we move through with the flexibility of heart and a willingness of mind to come together to create true partnership in this community. May we do this being held in community. May it be so. Ashe, and blessed be.